Many people believe the underground is nothing more than a forgotten deposit of cement, sewage, and silence. But for a man named Tobias, the darkness beneath London would become the prelude to his downfall. Tobias was neither an engineer nor an electrician, as many might assume one would need to be to venture into the maintenance caverns beneath the subway tracks. He was in charge of environmental inspections, a sort of caretaker for air quality and the presence of dangerous biological organisms, especially in abandoned areas of the tunnel system that the government had declared inactive. That a day he was alone. His colleagues were at another station on a less deep inspection. Tobias was 41, broad-bodied, with crooked shoulders from years of carrying equipment on his back. The mission was quick: measure carbon dioxide levels in a tunnel that hadn't been accessed in 5 years. The map indicated a hatch near the terminus of the Red Line at Aldwych, a disused ancient station. The place had a viscous, damp smell, as if the walls had been breathing in mud for decades. He descended with 2 flashlights, an air meter, an emergency mask, and a chest-mounted camera, standard for the department's archives. The ladder was long and narrowed as the rungs went down. The deeper he went, the stuffier it got. Tobias's radio crackled, but it was useless. The frequency didn't reach that far. When his feet touched the concrete at the tunnel's base, he realized something was wrong. The air meter began to vibrate as if it was trying to warn him about something. It couldn't accurately identify, but there was no toxic gas. Yes, the air was heavy, but not lethal. And the silence, it was unnatural. No rats, no sound of water trickling, just that deep hole swallowing everything from above. The flashlight flickered, as if the very energy refused to illuminate that place. When he turned the tunnel's corner, he found something that should never have been there. A wall of bones, stacked with care, like a pagan sculpture. Small skulls, children's skulls. Some bore symbols engraved on the top. Tobias backed away, throat tight. There was no record of any bones in that area. The chest camera began to fail. Violent static covered the lens at intervals. When he swung the flashlight to the right, he saw something move. Not a rat. Bigger. It slithered smoothly, but without the sound one would expect from something that large. Tobias froze. The bones began to creak. Yes, the bones. They started to move on their own. A child without eyes crawled out from within the pile. Its skin was grey, fingers long like claws, and its jaw opened beyond human limits. Tobias screamed, tried to run up the iron steps, but the ladder seemed longer now. He stumbled, fell, and heard the sound of claws scraping against metal just behind him. No one found his body, but in the following weeks, 3 more inspectors disappeared in the same area. The tunnel was sealed off permanently, and the last image captured on the chest camera, a repetitive whisper, as if the eyeless child was trying to speak. He saw us. Now he's one of us. Clara was 28 and lived in the city of Tartu, Estonia. She was a night digital signal operator for a meteorological radio network used by fishing boats in the Baltic Sea. Her job was lonely. She stayed in a dark room with 4 monitors and a long-range satellite dish pointed north. The station was outside the city, in a forested area covered in snow most of the year. It was common for them to pick up atmospheric noise, broken signals, static pops, and low-frequency transmissions from boats using old systems. The protocol was clear: never interact with unidentified transmissions. But on a February night, around 2:17 a.m., something different happened. The monitors began displaying codes that made no sense. Cyrillic symbols mixed with archaic characters. A repeating line read, "Do not look back unless you are sure." Clara thought it was interference from the old Russian satellite still in orbit. But then one of the speakers emitted a sound that was not noise or static. It was a voice, soft, childish, and speaking in old Estonian. Something like, You are alone, but you're not empty anymore. Clara turned around, and behind her, in the corner of the room, was a shadow that hadn't been there before, as if the shape of the corner had been deformed, expanded, created by a hole that absorbed the room's light. The air turned cold. The screen started showing an image from inside the station itself, as if someone was recording with a hidden camera. But Clara knew there were no internal cameras. The image trembled, and on it she could see the back of her own neck, sitting there. She stood up, ran into the corridor, but the lights went out one by one behind her. When she reached the generator, there was no sign of malfunction. The panel was perfect, but one of the levers was covered with fresh blood. She didn't remember cutting herself. Looking down, her left leg was slashed, as if something had bitten her, but without pain, as if her body had partially shut down. She tried to leave the station, but the steel door was locked with chains that hadn't been there before. Rusty chains with an ancient padlock without inscription. The radio started to play something. It was a recording of her own crying, but she had never cried in that room. The voice now spoke in a language that sounded like Latin mixed with Russian. The echo of those who listen too much becomes the voice of what should never be said. When the station was found 2 days later, Clara was gone, but there was an audio file recorded, never transmitted on any official channel. It was a woman's voice repeating the same phrase, with the sound of footsteps in the background. I'm still here, but the one with me is not human. The external security cameras, which should have recorded movement outside the facility, only showed the same frame repeated for hours. Clara, standing in the middle of the forest, looking up with all black eyes. And now that you've made it this far, tell me, are you watching alone? These stories are not just tales. They carry a real vibration, an energy that touches whoever listens, as if something was watching you as you listen. So if you've made it here and your heart is still beating fast, subscribe to the channel now, because this is just the beginning. And if you felt something strange, a cold breeze or a presence near you, comment here, I saw what she saw. I want to know who's really paying attention, or who's already been touched by what slips out of the video. Thermal engineer Lucas Reinhardt, 41, had been hired by a private Russian company to oversee the installation of geothermal sensors in remote Siberian regions. In practice, he was responsible for ensuring that subsurface temperature data was accurate enough to predict seismic failures and geological instabilities. But that September, one of the most isolated regions in the Rostov district revealed something that was on neither the maps nor the plans. The helicopter dropped him on a moss-covered plateau, isolated by hundreds of kilometers of tundra and silence. The mission was simple: install 3 sensors around a crater recently opened by seismic shifts. The crater itself didn't look natural. Its shape was too round, the edges perfectly symmetrical, as if someone had shaped the earth with a giant cutter. When Lucas descended to the edge of the opening, he realized the depth was absurd. He threw in a stone. There was no echo, no sound of impact, only the wind, which suddenly seemed to stop for a second, as if the very air respected the emptiness. There, after installing the first sensor, the equipment started to register a frequency not found in the geothermal network standards. A constant buzzing, like a low guttural chant, repeating at exact 3-second intervals. Analyzing the frequency on his laptop, he saw its rhythm-formed patterns. After hours, he realized those patterns were symbols, letters, words, names. Among the repeated names was his own, Lucas, then his mother's name, then the name of a man he didn't recognize. Finally, full sentences began appearing on the graphs, as if the sensor was a translator for something coming from the depths. There is no heat here, only frozen memories of what lies before time. Lucas tried to ignore the signals and carried on working. But at night, returning to his tent, he found the stakes pulled out, the canvas totally destroyed, and on the ground, massive claw marks, as if a creature had walked circles around the tent. But there were no tracks going in or out, just those circular markings. He spent the night in his vehicle. At dawn, around 4 a.m., he was awoken by someone knocking on the window. A man, shirtless, body covered in a black tar-like substance, staring at him with whitish eyes. Lucas grabbed a flashlight and shined it on the figure. Instead of backing away, the man passed through the light as if made of thick smoke. The sensors began to sound overload alarms, not from heat, but from presence. The earth vibrated, not like an earthquake, but a pulsing, an underground heartbeat, as if something was breathing below. Sensor 3, positioned near the crater's edge, was flung out of the ground by an invisible force. Approaching to retrieve the equipment, the ground gave way, and he fell 2 meters down before catching himself on a ledge. Inside, the stench was unbearable. Rotten, but not the usual kind, like the odor of burnt meat mixed with ancient mold. Looking up, he saw, for a moment, something looking down at him. A disproportionate head, completely smooth, with a single, vertical mouth stretching from chin to forehead. No sound came from that mouth, but Lucas heard inside his mind. "You opened it. Now go back and be the first to forget yourself. Forget yourself." With inhuman effort, he climbed out and fled in his vehicle. When he returned to base weeks later, he lost his voice for 2 days. When it returned, his voice sounded different, deeper, more paused, as if something inside spoke with him. Doctors said it was trauma, but neurological exams showed something else. His brain had developed a new structure, a second activity core, with electrical impulses active, even while he slept. 2 months later, all sensor data vanished from the company's cloud. Lucas was gone. His car was found near the Kazakhstan border, inside a frozen lake, but no body. Only the recorder, left on the passenger seat with the last entry, "The crater is not where it was opened. It's where you think too much, and thinking is digging with your eyes." Pest control agent Ilhéus Mendonça, 33, was sent to a rural property in the interior of Ilhéus, Bahia, after a string of anonymous calls reporting an unusual infestation in an old, abandoned mansion. Residents said the property belonged to a reclusive German who lived there nearly 50 years, and in his final months before vanishing, dug several tunnels under the house. There was no record of sale or donation of the land after his death, and the site was greatly neglected, covered by thick vegetation and cracks all over the structure. Ilhéus arrived around 8 a.m. At first glance, he saw no sign of insects or pests, with one exception, the total absence of natural sounds. No birds, no insects. The surrounding forest seemed smothered, as if life had stopped breathing there. With a flashlight and gear, he forced open the main door, which yielded easily, revealing an interior layered with thick dust and scratch marks on the walls, as if small animals had tried to escape from within. In the basement, he found the entrance to one of the Germans' tunnels. The smell was different, not just humidity, a scent of freshly disturbed earth, mixed with something metallic like dried blood. He descended carefully. The tunnel spiraled downward with inscriptions on the walls in some sort of white phosphorescent paint. The words were in a language unknown to him, but for some reason made his ears ring and eyes tear up. The deeper he went, the hotter it became, but it wasn't air temperature. It was as if his very bones were burning, as if some energy flowed through his flesh. About 40 meters in, he reached a circular underground chamber with a stone slab at the center. Around it, 7 vertical holes with old metal covers, each marked with a different symbol, like well covers. Ilhéus approached the slab and noticed something written on it in blackened letters, as if burned into the stone. They are awake but pretend to sleep, and those who see them sleep forever. Before he could retreat, one of the metal covers opened with a dry snap. Out of it came not a creature, not an animal. A man, an old naked man, completely covered in a dark, oily substance oozing from his pores as if he were made of tar. The man had white, pupil-less eyes and whispered something, soundless, lips moving too fast to understand. Ilhéus was paralyzed. He wanted to run, but his body wouldn't respond. As the old man came closer, more covers opened and more figures emerged. Men, women, children, all sickly-looking, covered in the same black substance, thin, bony, but alive. They didn't speak. They just walked around the slab, forming a circle, as if waiting for something. Then, all looked at Ilhéus at once, as if given some invisible order. At that moment, he managed to move and ran back through the tunnel, tripping, scraping his arms on the rocks, not looking back. But reaching the surface, the sun was gone. Despite being noon, the sky was dark as dusk. Around the house, dozens of people like those from below awaited, motionless, forming a circle, staring directly at him. No sound, no movement, only white eyes and bodies slick with oil. Ilhéus ran to his car and sped away. When he arrived at the local police station, screaming and crying, there were no signs of grime or scratches on his body. His clothes were clean, no blood, no marks. The car was clean too, as if nothing had happened. Police took him back the next day. The mansion was standing, but the tunnels were gone. In their place was nothing but hard earth, as if untouched for decades, days. Later, Ilhéus began acting strangely. He called co-workers at 3 a.m., saying the eyes are watching from inside, and that the awakened walk among the sleepers. He was hospitalized for extreme paranoia. One night, he was found dead, completely covered in a sticky, black substance like burnt oil, with white eyes open and a wide, unnatural grin on his face. The last note scribbled beside his bed said, "They let me see. Now I am one of them. When you remember me, it will be too late." During an archaeological dig in southern Kazakhstan, in a remote region of the Kizilkum Desert, field geologist Larissa Monteiro, 38, a Brazilian who had become a naturalized citizen after marrying a local engineer, discovered something old Soviet. Documents described only as site of eternal silence. It was a blank spot on maps, avoided even by local nomads. Scarce reports said any excavation there triggered a sourceless noise, a subterranean hum that never ceased and altered the listener's perception of time. Larissa, skeptical and highly methodical, was cataloguing sediment plates and fossilized rocks. She and 2 colleagues had set up a simple base with tents, radios, and seismic sensors to map ancient geological structures. On the 3rd day of excavation, upon reaching an unexpected layer just over 4 meters deep, Larissa's tools struck something that wasn't stone or earth. A sound echoed, like a distant bell, but muffled. The ground shook slightly. The radio they used crackled with a low tone, like a scream reversed. That same night, Larissa woke with her face covered by a layer of dark powder. The tent trembled softly, and the air was drier than usual. Her 2 colleagues were outside, kneeling in front of the dig. She thought they awoke early to work, but soon noticed something was wrong. They were motionless, eyes rolled back, praying in front of the hole. She ran to them, shook them, but it was as if they were in a deep trance. Their hearts beat, breathing, normal, but both murmured in unison, words she couldn't understand, with a repetitive cadence. "If they do not hear the earth, it will scream till the end of days." Desperate, Larissa tried communicating with the base, but all equipment was dead. No frequency, no response, not even the GPS worked. She spent the day observing the archaeologists, trying to understand. On the 2nd night, it was her turn to hear. She awoke to a deep, rhythmic sound, like colossal heartbeats coming from the desert's depths. The sound flowed through her ears and vibrated in her bones. She felt nauseous, blood dripped from her nose. Stepping outside the tent, she saw the hole had widened on its own, without human action. Now over 5 meters in diameter, something moved inside. Not an animal, no definite shape. A black, viscous, pulsating smoke, writhing like living muscles. From the hole, a deep whisper called her name, Larissa. She ran, abandoned. Her colleagues wandered the desert for hours until rescued by an aerial patrol, dehydrated and in shock. In the hospital, she tried explaining, but there were no signs of excavation at the indicated site. The terrain was intact, no tent, no hole, no sign of her companions. In the following months, Larissa was diagnosed with PTSD, but according to her doctors, her sleep behavior was most concerning. Every night at different times, she would sit up in bed, eyes open, and utter the same phrase, as if in a ritual. They are beneath our feet. The earth is not dead, it only naps. She started drawing symbols she'd never studied, and in one session while filmed asleep, something inexplicable happened. For 17 seconds, the video feed went completely black, and a high-pitched buzz was recorded so loud it blew out the computer speakers. After that, doctors could not wake her. Her body lived, but her mind was no longer there. With no close family, she was kept under observation. Most terrifying, days after her coma, her 2 colleagues appeared in the same city, wandering the streets barefoot, covered with dark dust, muttering in ancient Kazakh. They were hospitalized and, when questioned, only repeated, "She left us. Now all of you will hear." Larissa died 7 days later, never awakening. According to coroners, her skull vibrated continuously, as if there was a sound coming from inside her brain, a sound no one could decipher. At her burial, the priest fainted after clearly hearing a whisper from the coffin. She went too deep. If you've made it this far, breathe. Try to absorb what you just heard. With each story, we dive deeper into the hidden side of reality. The one that lurks in the cracks of the world, that whispers when we are alone, that screams when we dare to unearth what should remain buried. If these stories touched something inside you, something you can't even explain, then you are part of this. And if you're here now, it's not by chance. Subscribe to the PaverNet channel and join this ever-growing community of people who don't shy away from darkness, who face fear head-on. But tell me, which of these stories shook you most? Or better yet, when was the last time you saw or heard something you couldn't explain? Share in the comments. Your story could be next on this channel. And if any of these narratives made you look twice in the mirror, question the noises in your house at night or rethink the calm of silence, then this video has served its purpose. Thank you for being here. Come back anytime, and remember, some doors once opened never close completely. Close completely.